everyone. Amazing. We have people coming in already. I love watching this number go up every evening. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Think You Know Wine. Please join us in the chat. Say where you're from. We love to hear where you guys are from. Please go right ahead. We already have 240 people in this room already. That took like a hot second there. So we're going to let everyone settle in, sit down, pour yourself a glass, say where you're from in the chat. There it goes. Hello. Got some people in from Ontario, Montreal, Scarborough, Cambridge, and now it's too much for me to read. There it goes.
Vancouver.
Cincinnati.
Yes, we got a lot of people coming in. Brockville in bold capital letters, can definitely read that. All right, welcome everyone. We are going to let everyone come into the room. We have some of the most amount of registrants we've ever had for this broadcast before. We're so happy that you're here with us this evening, and we are doing something a little bit different. So come on in and sit down, pour yourself a glass. Go. Perfect. When you get from Finland, wow.
Finland.
Once we get about 400 people in, we are going to get started, and we are not far off from that number, everyone. So get comfy, get settled, and get ready for Think You Know Wine. All right, here we go. We got close to our 400. Perfect. Welcome everyone to Think You Know Wine. I am so excited to be joining you tonight. I am your host, Renée Sferrazza, and we are doing something a little bit different this evening. It is the Critics' Coup. So Think You Know Wine is brought to us by Wine-A-Line, an absolutely amazing service that reviews thousands of wines per month. And our 4 critics are from there. So joining us this evening is David Lawrason. Hello, David.
Hi, Renee. Good evening, everyone. Nice to be back again. Really looking forward to these every 2 weeks. It's become something of an institution. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, David. Michael Godel.
Here's Renee. How are you tonight?
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
Thank you. Glad everybody could join us again. It is really fun to do this every 2 weeks.
Yes. And we also have Syrah D'Amato. Thank you, Syrah, for joining us.
Thank you, Renee. I've just been noticing that there are quite a few people here from my hometown of Sault Ste. Marie, so I'd like to say hi to those.
Amazing. And we also have John Szabo. Hi, John Szabo. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for coming out. This is an episode I'm looking particularly forward to, something a little different. We're going to have fun.
Absolutely amazing. All right. So like I mentioned at the beginning, guys, we are doing the Critics' Coup this evening. So our critics still have to score 10 points for their wines. They're able to score 3 points for varietal, 2 points for country, 1 point for region, 1 for appellation, 2 for vintage, plus or minus a year, and 1 point for price within a 30% scale, 15% above and 15% below. So the difference today is that each critic has chosen a wine that they only know, and the other critics are going to guess it. They have taken over. They are going rogue, and I'm so happy about it. So I will be switching out with every critic. They'll be hosting each and every single round. But before we get into that, I just wanted to ask, what's in your glasses this evening? We'll be bringing up our poll as well. So John, what's in your, David, what's in your glass tonight?
Well, in anticipation of spring, which has not yet happened in Toronto, where it's like -5 or something silly, I've got a lovely, crisp, but rich textured white wine from the Vinho Verde region of Portugal, Morales de Moncau. It's actually just been released at Vintages today in Toronto at the LCBO, and it is a cracker value. It's a really rich, complex, yet very bright wine, and it's on the shelf. I think it's for $16.95.
Amazing. Thank you. That's such a delicious wine to be drinking. Syrah, what are you drinking this evening?
Well, I would love to anticipate spring as well, but because we're not there yet, I wanted to cozy up with something warm, something that came out actually just a couple of weeks ago in vintages that we reviewed, and I think that we all liked. It's the Tesselai Côte de Roussillon. It's a Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre blend. And it's quite warming, it's ripe, it's modern, but it's still really expressive. I feel I need to get somewhere warm, and this is helping me get there.
Amazing. David, what are you, Michael, what are you drinking tonight? I keep looking at David, but looking at Michael. It's throwing me off. Michael, what are you drinking this evening?
We were separated at birth. We're actually
That's right.
extremely related.
Actually, brothers, I get it.
I'm also going into that sort of mezzo half and half world, anticipating spring. So I've got what obviously looks like rosé or rosato in my glass, and in fact, it is labeled rosato, but it is a 50-50 wine, meaning it's 50% nice rosato made wine, but it's also 50% skin contact. So it's a really interesting blend here. This is from Vigneti Tardi, which is, where are they? They are in Prignano Cilento in Italy, and this is their Rosso, what they call Rosso, but it's essentially rosé, and it's this really, really nice, funky, springtime, lots of energy, great kind of interesting wine. Okay.
Absolutely love it. And John, what are you drinking this evening?
I'm drinking something a little bit unusual. It's not unusual in that it's a Marlborough Sauvignon, but it is unusual in that it's a super premium example that we were tasting at the office the other day. And I was hoping it would be put into one of our exchange cases, but my colleagues didn't all agree. We didn't all align on this wine, if you can believe it. It's amazing, but it's outside of the typical Marlborough mold. It's really flinty, it's really smoky. I mean, Dog Point were the folks behind the original Cloudy Bay that put Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough on the map way back in the 90s, but it is a bit of an unusual style. And, you know, it's good, I think, that for our exchange cases, we do all have to align. That's the strict policy we've enforced at Wet Wine Align. So all four of us have to give it the thumbs up to be included. So you won't get to taste this one in any of our upcoming boxes, but we do have, I got to say, a couple of extra boxes left over for the end of March. If anyone wants to receive a delicious box of wine, either at the $30 price point, what we call the Discovery, or a little bit more expensive, the Black at about 50. I think we've got a handful of cases, a dozen or so left. You can get all white, you can get mixed, you can get all red. And I'm delighted to see, much against Brian McCaw, our legendary CEO's thoughts, that the white cases really have taken off. And you know my love for white wine. And Brian said, nobody's going to want a case of all white wines. Well, you know what, folks? Spring is around the corner. And that's when we shift into white. Well, I kind of go white all year long. But there you go. If you want to grab a case, there are a couple left. Hurry, they won't last long because I'm taking one of those last white cases. I've already got one earmarked for me.
So John has already called dibs, but you can see that there's been a link that's been dropped into our chat. So if you guys want to click on that and head over to the exchange to pick up your case this evening, just open up the browser, but do it later after you're done watching us, because we're going to have so much fun this evening. Looks like most of you are drinking one of the wines that are part of tonight. So we are going to get everything started here. And I have my first critic that's going to be staying behind with me, and that is Syrah. Syrah is our first critic up for this evening. So we're going to say bye to David, John, and Michael for now. And we're going to get you guys to just start pouring wine number 1 into your glasses. Perfect. As you leave, and we'll get the critics to get some time with the wine. And we'll wait for Dave. There we go. Perfect. Syrah, I am so happy that you are my first critic up this evening. So I'm just going to bring up your wine right here, and you're going to tell the lovely folks
Thanks,
at
Renee.
home all about it.
This is the first time that I've seen this space.
Just bear with me one moment.
I haven't been in a void.
I know, isn't it nice?
Yes, it's very nice. All right.
There we go.
Can they see the wine?
Yes, if you can see the screen share there, then it's going through. I'm not entirely sure what's happening. Something is up.
I can't, but I can talk about it while.
One second. One moment. We're having a mild technical difficulty.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, I know. Absolutely perfect. Just one second. Bear with me, everybody. All right. Can we see it now? Or it's going to come through. Something is going to work. Just one moment. There we go. Syrah, let me know that if you can see the wine.
Yes, yeah, I can see the wine. Okay, perfect.
All right, perfect.
So-
Let's tell our wonderful audience members how what all the process, what's happening in this wine. Let's go through it.
Yeah. So I chose a Greek wine. Now, I have a feeling that the critics are going to get this because here is an unoaked high acid wine that doesn't have any residual sugar, right? So Chablis would be what I think that they might guess other than this, because I think it's most similar. And for the scoring wizard, I would say, because this is 90% Assyrtiko, I wouldn't dock them any points if they didn't pick out the Aidani or the Aetheri, which make up the rest of the 10%, even though they will, the Aetheri in particular, give a little bit of aromatic lift and the other give a little bit more lemony character to the wine. But this is something we all really, really liked. This is a very recent vintage here and under $30, a really crisp, nice alternative to Chablis. So
Amazing. And then
Greek Isles from Santorini.
Awesome.
Is, these are old vines, about 30 to 60 years old, grown in a basket style fashion, ungrafted. So pretty cool wine.
And let's just go through all the points that they can score. So the name of the wine is?
So the name of the wine is Argyros Atlantis White. And they will have to know that it's from Santorini, the region, and Greece, the country. They will have to know that the variety, or the main variety, is Assyrtiko. The vintage is 2019. And for some reason on my notes, I had 24.95 and it's showing 26.95 here. So maybe the scoring wizard could just do a very quick check on that. But otherwise, that's what they'll need to know.
All right, let's stop this screen share here. Perfect. And we're going to get all the critics to come back in the room. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay.
And you're going to take it from here because I am going to be, once they come back in, I'm going to be enjoying this wine this evening as well. Right, wait, as we wait for
they're coming back. I know they are.
They're coming back. There we go.
Sorry. Wow. Way to throw me off my game if I were tasting this wine.
That was the longest critics lounge we've ever experienced. I feel like my hair has grown since we last were on.
Oh, that's brilliant. You guys look so amazing.
We just couldn't stand not winning the competition, Sarah.
These guys definitely get points for best hair, all of them tonight. Please, scoring wizards, make that happen. Okay, brilliant, folks. Did you get enough time while you're straightening your hair there to taste the wine? Okay.
I don't know how you do it. How do you taste wine with so much hair in the way?
You have to keep moving it off your face.
Thank you for understanding the challenges of being me. All right.
It is so distracting. I don't know how you deal with it.
Michael, I love
you
your
look like
wig.
a rock star. You definitely look like somebody from the late 70s. Okay. Michael, that being said, you're actually first.
I'm sorry, the name is Brian May.
Brian May. Number one. What do you think?
Again, I will try to work past this distraction of all this hair flying in my face. I'll do my very best. But thank you, Sarah, for choosing this wine, because I love a good smoky, smoldering, flinty, barrel fermented, possibly white wine. That's always a lot of fun. So thank you. I think all of us would agree that there's one very particular variety that this would lean us towards. But in today's world, you just never know, because so many people are doing this with other white grapes. But that's where I'll leave it. How's that?
Good. That's fantastic. I like that. A few hints there. So David, what about you?
Well, love the wine, actually. Beautiful. It's very complex. I think that's what I like about it the most. It's got lots of smoke and toast and hazelnut. So there's obviously some wood treatment here, but the fruit is right there with the wine. The oak is not too strong for me. And again, texturally, very polished, very clean, really good acid underneath. This is a very, very well-made wine.
Okay, excellent. Okay, good comments. You guys your descriptions are spot on. John in red.
I'm a little perplexed, I have to say. Either my colleagues are trying to throw me off the scent. Were you guys having some other conversation going on back there in the critics' room? I don't know, the wine in my glass, in any case, that was labeled #1, for me is a pretty crisp, fresh, I don't get any oak here on this at all, even a little bit of CO2 to liven it up, give it some more freshness, kind of a neutral variety, not obviously aromatic, but a bit of sweet citrus underneath, a little orange, riper vintage, I'm tending to think, with a nice little acid twang on the back end, but I'm having some trouble with this one. What am I missing here, gents? Is there some underlying wood here, or am I drinking something else altogether? It's so hard to tell with this hair. I can barely see.
Maybe it's just the hair that smells like it smells like a barrel. It's very possible.
He's being thrown off the scent by the hair. All right. I guess this is time for final guesses, Renee. This is how it goes, right? So Michael.
That was a little quick, but okay. So Michael.
Michelle.
That's right. It's pretty crisp. So I'm going to say that this is Chenin Blanc.
Okay.
And I'm going to say it comes from, where is this from? I'm going to say I think actually it's crispness and this confusion that we're in. It's telling me to go old world. So I'm going to say it's Chenin Blanc. It's from the Loire Valley in France. And it's pretty young. I'd say 2018. And I'll call it $22.95.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
So we're on to David now for his final answer.
Okay, well, I wasn't confused, but now I am. Here are my colleagues. But I'm going to stick with my original thoughts on this. I mean, I thought it was Chardonnay right off the bat on the nose, and I did get some smoky, toasty elements to it. It's a lovely wine. I love the richness of the fruit, but there's this great underlying acid, so I've got to set it in a fairly cool climate. I first went to Burgundy, but it's quite ripe as well. There's almost this sort of over peach, sort of banana fruit. So I'm going to go actually Niagara on this wine, and largely because of that acid. And I'm going to go, well, I'll go Niagara, and $30 and a 2018 vintage.
Okay, thank you, David. And you, John.
So I thought we were friends. You know, the whole point of tonight was to make it easy, like slam dunks, like here we are already on wine #1 and we're in totally different directions. And I'm confused and I can't see and my hair is too long. And a whole bunch of things are going wrong here right off the bat.
Not to yourself. I'm glad you did it though.
And your face isn't giving away anything, which is also troublesome. Okay, so money time, got to lay it down. I'm going to tell you my initial thought was I was with Pinot Gris, I was with Pinot Grigio, but then I thought, why would Sarah choose Pinot Grigio for us? She would never do that because that's cruel and unusual punishment. And my other thought was Chardonnay in a coolish climate, unoaked style or very, very lightly oaked. And that's where I have ended up. I too bounce back and forth between the old and the new world. But for me, there's just a lushness and a ripeness to the fruit here and a modernity, if I could say that I ended up actually in Niagara as well. I think this is a 2019 Niagara Bench area Chardonnay from, I said 2019 vintage. And, you know, this is probably in the entry level, I'm going to say 22, no, Michael said $22.95. So I'm just to be different, I'm going to say $20. There you go.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Now I have to say, I thought you were actually all go another way. The wine actually is. This is the Atlantis white here.
Wow,
and
man.
It's Assyrtiko from Santorini. And so the vintage on this is 2019 and the price is $26.95. So you guys actually, I think you all got at least one thing right about this wine, but I know that we all really liked it during the tasting. So it's an Assyrtiko based wine. There's a little bit of a theory and Idani in here, giving it a little bit of lift, but not very much. It's 90% Assyrtiko here. I think you all very well recognize that it was high in acid, that it was perky, that it was unoaked, or if it was oaked, it was something neutral. It was relatively neutral. So yeah, a GNC. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
But you
No,
all
it's
described the wine very
An
well.
obvious Santorini wine, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
I expected John to give us a Santorini, but anyway, very sneaky, very good choice, Sarah. It's a lovely wine, by the way.
And yeah, delicious wine.
Amazing job, Sarah. Before we go into some chats about the wine, I'm just going to get our scoring wizards to start sharing the screen and see how our critics did for this round. Also,
It'll be
you
a
guys
whopper.
are killing me with this hair.
It's going to end soon.
We got 2 points even across the board for everyone. John, David, and Michael, good job. So we can pull that down. Starting
Okay.
high, everybody. We're
They all
starting
get extra
high.
points for their hair though, so please make sure those
That's
are
what we're
added.
banking on, the bonus points.
Photo.
Bonus points for the hair. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So I really love to hear that you had chosen this wine, Sarah, because they all seemed to like it. And when you were saying that in the critics lounge, I was like, that's such a nice thing to do. I don't think I would have done that, but that's
Yeah.
that's such a nice thing to do. And we had a question come in, which I don't quite understand, but it's what does Assyrtiko mean? And I think it refers to the other grape varietal that's in this wine. So would you like to speak about that a little bit more?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear the question. What are they asking about?
Sorry, I'm just going to remove that question because I don't see it. I don't understand the question.
Okay.
Sorry, but there's
Probably,
another question.
Assyrtiko.
Were they asking about the winery?
No, this one,
Grapes.
sorry, there's a different question, which is what are the typical characteristics of Assyrtiko?
Okay, well, one of them is really, really high acid. And, you know, like on par with Riesling. And it's most often done in a very dry style, which might set it apart from Riesling. It doesn't have some of those distinctive lime characteristics that you find with Riesling. Mineral, definitely you'd find that in this wine. And because it is a wine with high acid that is unoaked, you would certainly find that these are actually made from ungrafted vines as well that are 30 to 60 years old. So it gives it some concentration. And then also, you know, translates into the slightly higher, more premium price, because you can find this wine at less, you know, for less expensive. You can even find it more, especially if it's been oak treated. But this one is somewhere in the middle and it's done in stainless steel. Sometimes it's also done in cement.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I want to remind our audience again this evening that if you do have any questions, to please put them in the question box Q&A. And you guys have been doing an amazing job at not giving away what the wines are in the chat. So
Yeah,
I'd like to say, please keep it up, everybody. I know there's some questions coming in as why I am not blind tasting this evening. You know, maybe it might be a different coup that comes and happens with that. But we have one more question here for this wine, and then we are going to move on to our next critic, who is Michael, who'll be joining me in the lounge. I really like Michael's hair out of the three wigs.
Gino Vanelli.
Sorry.
Gino Vanelli.
I know it's
Vanelli.
giving me it's a really
I
good
could
one.
wear this. I could wear this in all 4 seasons.
Good too. It'd be good. So as the last question is Santorini a cool climate? And I'll let any critic answer this one.
Go
I
John.
can answer, but maybe these guys want to do a little talking.
John, go right ahead because I just want to see you talk with the hair.
Oh man,
I'm
yeah. well,
sorry, it's too good.
The answer is no, but nor is it a searingly hot climate. Obviously, Santorini is an island in the middle of the Aegean, and we won't get into the volcanics, but yes, it's a still active volcano that really, I think, is imprinted on the wines. This is a lighter style of Santorini, if you can believe that, with the addition of Athiri and Idani. It softens the impact of Assyrtiko, which, as Sarah said, can be really quite acidic. But it's sunny. It doesn't rain in Santorini from March till November. So the only moisture the vines get is from the humidity that creeps out of the caldera. Picture the beautiful caldera of Santorini, creeps up and then settles onto the surface and is absorbed by all of that ash and pumice. So that's pretty much the only moisture, lots of sunshine. And that's why they're trained in these really weird baskets. Google it, vine training in Santorini, and you'll see some of the most amazing landscape. But short answer is no, not cool climate, but not super hot.
Yeah, check out that Coolura. That's a nice, really interesting way of training vines.
It's honestly amazing. So critics, we're going to keep Michael with us, and I'm going to get the rest of you to open up bottle number 2. And we're going to send you guys off to the Critics Lounge. Those of you wearing a wig, you can take it off if you'd like.
Yes, that's definitely
you're fully free and able to do
Obviously,
that.
it didn't work for me, so I'm taking
I will say the best thing about having long hair is the hair flip. Anyway, so Michael's
I haven't mastered yet.
There we go. There we go. Michael's gonna be staying. We're gonna get the rest of the critics to go out into the Critics Lounge. And I will start sharing my screen once we have all of our appropriate critics leaving. We're just gonna wait for, there we go. Fantastic. How is that new head of hair, Michael? Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it for a very short amount of time.
Yeah,
I already have enough going as it is, so I didn't need more at the moment, but it was all in good fun.
All right.
Sarah's reaction was quite priceless.
Sarah's reaction was priceless. So this is your wine for the evening. Can you tell the wonderful people, just state the name and all the ways that they can score points, and then just give a little bit of information about the wine?
Sure. So we have Marco Felluga, Amani Friulano, 2019. This is from the appellation of Collio, which is in the greater region of Friuli, Venezia, Giulia. So we are in the northeast corner of Italy, pretty close to the city of Venice. And right abutting the Slovenian border. This is a really, really fantastic region. I was there just over a year ago. Well, it's now more just than that, as we all know. And I'll explain why I chose it later, but I think this should be a fun wine for our critics to work on.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to stop my screen share and we're going to bring the other critics back into the room. And again, reminder to our audience, do not give away any secrets. And no, nobody has a wig to imitate Michael. So Michael, you are the host. Please go right ahead.
I am so glad you didn't come back with something that was going to shock me. That's about enough for one night, I think. For one Think You Know wine. Okay, is everybody kind of rebounded from that first round? Sarah,
I'm just going to remind our critics.
You're a devil.
Just going to remind our critics to come off of mute as well as you come back into the room. Go ahead, Michael.
So I'm just going to let you all know that this one is going to be the easiest round you've ever dealt with. No mystery or enigma here, just delicious wine. So, you've had a few minutes to assess a little bit, and I'm going to go straight to David and say, what are your thoughts, David?
Really interesting wine. A good choice, Michael. Not as dead easy as you might think. But it's what I call a semi-aromatic variety. So if you think about Riesling and Gewürztraminer being these kind of full-on, very aromatic varieties, this is in that same family, but not quite as intensely aromatic. It's got a good body to it. It's a little bit fleshy, a little bit round. The acid is there, but it's just kind of medium. Alcohol is a little bit elevated. So it's taking me to a certain place, although there's a lot of great white wines like this being made around the world now. And one of the things about them, if you like the style, is that many of them are very, very good value as well. So I'm looking forward to the reveal on this. I think I know what it is, but of course you never know. When you think you know wine, you don't.
Pretty good descriptors, David. I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. I think the others may want to consider following you on this one. We'll see what they have to say, though. John, what do you feel here?
Yes, Michael. I don't know, hair, no hair. I'm having a little bit of a struggle today. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I like David's description. The important aspects of this wine are certainly the aromatics, first and foremost. And I agree, there's a certain floral element here. I would call it in the terpene spectrum of flavor compounds, to get technical. And that means you have to consider Riesling, you have to consider Pinot Gris, you have to consider Gewürz. I don't, because it's a little over the top. But then there are a host of other varieties that are also in that family. I would throw Albarino out there, and it's field blend mates from Northwest Spain, Portugal area. Young wine. What's kind of surprising is the acid level. I was smelling this, thinking fresh, thinking vibrant. And then when I put it in my mouth, it was a little more languid than expected. So it's either from a very warm vintage or a slightly warmer area than I initially anticipated. But overall, I think the balance is really fine. I love that really elegant point of bitterness on the back end, which is also typical of these aromatic, semi-aromatic varieties. No oak here to speak of, and a wine that's really in good prime, good drinking prime right now. So anyhow, thanks. I'm not sure what it is, but thanks for putting it in my glass tonight.
Okay. I don't know. I think between the two of you, we've got an absolutely perfect tasting note, having written without even knowing what the wine is. So that's where Sarah's going to come in and tie it all together. What do you think, Sarah?
Michael, I don't know whether I should trust your comments here. I'm suspicious that you're trying to throw us off. No, I actually really like this wine quite a bit. And I love the acidity. I think maybe I know that my counterparts are going for kind of semi-aromatic, but to me, this is a little bit more aromatic. I was into the aromatic camp. And it's fresh, it's mineral. It might have just a couple of years of age, not a long time, but just a little bit to round it off. It's taking me to a certain place, and certainly a certain grape. But the rest of it, they've said.
Okay, perfect. So you've all got a certain place and a certain grape in your heads, which is really what this is all about. The question is, after David goes, what's going to happen next? That's the exciting part, everybody. I hope you know that and think you know wine. It's, the person who goes first has to lay it out there.
Yep.
And you see what happens after that. So David.
And you can steer people to the wrong direction entirely and on purpose too. It's part of the game.
All right, David, you're on the hot seat. So
I am. So I think I know the place, but I don't know the grape.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting because this region actually has 3 or 4 white varieties that are enjoying considerable popularity at the moment. And I just can't pin exactly which one, but I'm going to just take a stab and say Felluga, which is a white variety from Italy. It's the south of Italy, which is accounting for sort of the lower acid from the region of Campania. I'm not going to try and go for a more specific appellation. It's a lovely wine. I think it's quite youthful wine. So I'm going to go 2019, and these wines are very good value. I'm going to go about $20.
Okay. Like the answer. Excellent. John, where are you going to go?
Michael.
Don't look at me like that.
I'm looking at you.
It's fun, John.
Don't forget, I know where you live, and you're not that far away.
Yes. You still want to borrow? If you still want to borrow records, you got to be careful.
That's right. My collection needs some bolstering. Okay, got to lay it on the line here. I got to say, I'm not fully confident with this, but if it isn't, it really reminds me of a warm vintage ripe Albarino from the Rieix Países in Galicia and northwestern Spain. I think youthful 2019. I'm pretty sure that was a warm vintage up there. Yes, Michael? Yes?
I'd say it's pretty warm. Yeah.
I'm just fishing for some clues here, and you're not giving me any, so on we go. There are a number available at the LCBO. It's a grape that's come up in popularity in the last decade or so, and they're pretty reasonably priced, and you can get yourself a pretty decent one for under 20. So I think this is a nice value, 1895 Rieix Países Albarino from Spain.
Okay. Well, we've gone in 2 different directions, Sarah. You can split the twain somehow, or you can join along. What do you think, Sarah? Where are you going to go with this?
My initial thought was Riesling, especially because it tickled my tongue like a Riesling. But that tickling sensation actually is going to take me somewhere else. It's not far off from John's guess, but I think that it actually might be an Alvarinho from Portugal. And it's certainly a well-made one. It's got a little bit more texture than your typical wines that have had some CO2 added, because this certainly doesn't. So I think it's a Vinho Verde from Minho from Portugal. And I think that the vintage is 2019.
And how about price? What do you think?
Oh, sorry, the price. Thank you for reminding me of that. I think that the price is $23.
Okay. So Renee, everybody said what they have to say.
Everyone has said what they have to. Everyone said what they have to say, and go right ahead.
Okay, everybody. Marco Felluga,
Oh,
Collio,
Friulano.
Friulano, 2019.
That's good. Brilliant. That's such a good wine.
Such a good one.
really is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely delicious wine. We're going to bring the scoring wizards up now and see what the scores are from this round. You guys have gone all in with this, I have to say. All right, so we got David with our highest scoring points. David, it was really good that you went to Italy with that one, have to say. So you got 4 points overall. Right now you are leading the pack with a total score of 6. We followed by John having a total score of 4, and we can't fault Michael and Sarah. Right now they're at 2, but that's only because they have both been our hosts at this current moment in time. All right, so we are going to pull down this screen, and I have to say, you guys have chosen some really, really interesting wines this evening. Michael, I know that when we were in the Critics Lounge, you were going to say why you had chosen this wine. Could you please share that with us now?
Of course. So, you know, one of the things that we do in life is that we draw on experience, right? And this was one of my more favorite experiences in recent times. In May of 2019, I spent a week in Collio, quite a bit of time actually at the property where Marco Felluga is in Ruziz Superiore. It's a beautiful spot. We did some verticals of Pinot Bianco. We tasted Friulano, Ribolla Gialla. But what's interesting to me about this area, especially Friulano, it used to be called Tokai Friulano. They dropped Tokai. Has something to do with Hungary, I think, John, is that right? But they dropped that and it's just called Friulano. But we're talking about this amphitheater of an area that runs up against the Slovenian border and kind of circles around like this up towards Austria. And Friulano is a chameleon. It can do anything. It, in a way like Chenin Blanc does in the Loire, it can go from perfectly dry to a sweet wine and everywhere in between. It can be a skin contact wine. And David hit the nail on the head when he talked about this. He couldn't believe how much energy there was in this wine, but not that much acidity. And that is a classic drier Friulano expression, which is rich and lots of energy, and you know it's going to age well, but somehow it does this without a very high level of acidity. So it's a fascinating wine to me. And I love the family and I love the producers. So that's why I chose it.
Absolutely amazing, Michael. Thank you so much. Critics, what did you think about this wine choice? It sounded like you guys really liked it.
Yeah, I did. And this area of Northeast Italy is making some brilliant white wines. It's one of my favorite white wine regions in the world. It's just so underrepresented here in Ontario, at least, and probably in many parts of Canada as well. The wines you get are a little bit more expensive than some of your average Pinot Grigio or Soave, but boy, they've got character and they've got class. Really love the region.
I see general nodding from our other two. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, it's worth noting that this is where the white wine revolution happened in Italy back in the 60s. I mean, the first temperature controlled, first stainless steel tanks, the first modern style white wines, and they've got a collection of interesting varieties. And Friulano is, I mean, it does shift in a number of different directions. This is obviously a richer and more intense example. I'm wondering if Michael actually expected us to guess this wine, or were you just hoping to, I mean, you got the leftover bottle, so you got a nice glass to have after this pain is over.
Actually, John, I'll be honest with you. No, I don't know that I expected you to guess it, but I did think that it would have been the kind of wine where you would get a general idea of the area. And, you might have been thinking Sauvignon, you might have been thinking Ribolla, you might have been thinking Pinot Bianco. You could think many different things, right? And it's not a skin contact version of this. So it's not idiosyncratic. It's not, an unusual wine. But it makes perfect sense where both you and Sarah went. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
You know, Alvarinho can go into that kind of tropical peachy and a warm vintage, you know, kind of spectrum. So not unusual to think that at all. The climate's obviously different and the soils are different, but and I can understand where David went. You know, I know when you said, I think I know where it's from, but not sure exactly which grape. You know, you're deciding between Falanghina and Fiano and Greco di Tufo. You're not sure which way to go. All of these actually make sense in the context of what this wine is.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was a really great choice.
Yeah.
We're going to answer 2 quick questions, then we're going to move on to our last, our other wine. I'm going to go over to John for this question because it's directed to John. John, what does terpene mean?
I won't bore you with the chemical details, but suffice to say that it's a family of aromatic, tasty molecules that you find in certain varieties. So anytime you get the floral notes of, say, Gewürztraminer Muscat or Riesling as good examples, that's in the terpene family of aromas.
Thank you so much. And Sarah, I'm going to ask this question to you. What would you pair with this Friulano?
Well, that's a good question. And I think it's incredibly food friendly, given the fact that it is really fresh, refreshing, and it isn't burdened by too much winemaking or oak. So, you know, this is very spring friendly. There's, I'm thinking kind of white asparagus, you know, lightly buttered white asparagus would be really, really nice with it. Or a little lentil dish even would work very well with it. I think that the fruitiness in this would counterbalance the earthiness of that dish. But I also, you know, also some grilled whitefish with a very simple beurre blanc. I don't think you need to have a very complicated dish for this wine. Actually, I think that you should let it shine and leave that dish kind of uncomplicated, simple herbs, butter, maybe even a little bit of wine in the dish.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It looks like
Great answer, Sarah. Great food pairing answers, I have to say. And I also I noticed that in the chat that our very good friend Dick Snyder said scallops.
Yes,
Scallops.
Yeah.
Scallops all the way.
Beautifully cooked brown scallops on their own. A little bit of chive on top with the Friulano. Beautiful.
Absolutely fantastic. All right, my next critic up is going to be David. David, you're going to be staying behind with me, and our fellow critics are going to be going into the critics lounge. Let's open up our bottles, everyone, for wine number 3. This is our red wine. Give you guys some time to experience it in the glass. All righty there. We're going to get there. Fantastic, David. You're the only one left here with me. I'm actually pouring it out myself. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. And if you could tell the wonderful people at home what a little bit about the wine, but also the name of the wine and all the ways that your fellow critics can score points.
Okay, so Château d'Anglais Classique. So this is a Château, single estate Château. And it's actually in the Languedoc region of France, southern France, which is a massive region. And it's just sort of to the west of the Rhone Valley and right up against the Spanish borders. So the grape varieties that you see there, Syrah, Grenache, Mourvèdre, are the staples of all the reds from this huge area. And this one happens to be led by Syrah. And I'm thinking our critics will probably say Syrah, so I'm not expecting them to miss that. But getting the specific region is really the key here. But the real reason I wanted to present this wine is that when I recently tasted it, I thought it was one of the best value reds I've tasted so far this year. And that's typical of the region, which is totally underpriced. But this one in particular, and I'll tell you more about the backstory of this when the critics are involved. So.
They need to hear that. So they can also score points. What do they need to score points?
So they need to get the grape variety or blend. I'm fine if they say sort of a Rhone blend. That's good. Country, obviously France. Region Languedoc, appellation La Clappe, which I'll tell you more about. Vintage 2018, price $18.95.
Thank you so much, David. All right, we're going to get our critics to come back in the room here. And remember, audience at home, please, I know if you love the wine, please don't say what it is. You can still love it and not say what it is. We can't give our critics too many clues. David, take it away.
Okay, so we've got, who am I going to first here? I'm going to John. So John, I thought you might enjoy this wine. So what do you think?
Wow. Well, thank you. From a personal side, but from the company side, I might be a little angry that you blew the budget on this. I think Sarah and Michael respected the budget parameters, but I think you probably spent a little bit more than either of them, because this is pretty fine wine, or it's really amazing value if it is inexpensive. For me, this is pretty classic. I mean, I love the nose. It's all florals, it's all violets, it's roses. It's got a little meaty, gamey, peppery, a little salami smoke. But man, on the palate, what a terrific wine, really even keeled, nice, sandy, fine tannins, and the length, man, terrific length. So this is pretty fine wine. I'm pretty confident in the grape. It's a question of where that grape might be from. But yeah.
It's could be from a lot of places.
Yes.
Yeah, no, good description, John. Thank you. Next over to Sarah.
Yes, yeah, this is a gorgeous wine. Thank you very much, David. I love that slightly savory edge to it, certainly that meatiness, lots of red fruit, bright red fruit. The tannins on it are quite fine. They're present. They add a mouth-filling component to it, but they're not aggressive, which I like about this wine. There is almost this like sarsaparilla note to it that I really, really like. That's
a really good description. That's kind of in the root beer kind of realm, right? Yeah.
It's something I certainly like to smell and taste in a red wine. So I'm very intrigued with this. I'm not as confident as John about what the potentially grapes are what I'm thinking are in this, but I have some ideas.
Okay, excellent. I'm counting on you for this one, Sarah. Okay, just so you know. Okay, Michael.
Wow, my first impression is long gone. Long gone. So thank you, David. I'm totally stumped. I love it. Dusty, but so concentrated. I felt like right from the start, I knew exactly where I was going. Old world grape varieties from a very specific place, made in a new world where it's warm and things come out lush, but there's good tannic structure to it. But what's confusing me is the herbology in it. So, you know, the European, or at least the French term would be garrigue, garriga in Italian. But in the new world, let's say Western provinces or states, you know, that type of thing, or Far East down under, let's say, that garriga or garrigue is something different. Tarragon, sage, rosemary, whatever you want to call it.
Good.
So that's where I'm confused. I'm pretty solid, I think, on the grape varieties, or varieties, but it's that thing that's making me wonder which way to go. Okay.
Well, it is a wine of a place, and that's kind of the key to this. So, I told the audience when you were in the lounge, lounging around, that you would probably get the grape or grapes. I'm fully expecting you to do that, but the place is the issue, and a couple of other interesting things. So, John, let's have it. Where are you going to go?
Well, you've dropped enough hints there to fully perplex and confuse. Well done. So, look, I think this is a Rhone style blend. I think it's a lot of Syrah here. I was thinking initially even pure Syrah from the Northern Rhone or in that style. But in the end, there's a kind of lushness that leads me to believe there might be a little bit of the other blending partners there, Grenache and Mourvèdre, especially that sweet strawberry sort of note, that sarsaparilla note that Sarah picked up on. And then after that, the place, I mean, this is a warm place, but it's not an exceedingly hot place. The acids are great in balance. Really, I'm just prevaricating here. I think this is I think this is a GSM blend or an SGM blend or SMG blend. Relatively youthful. Vintage would depend on where it's from. Yeah, I'm gonna go Southern Okanagan. I'm gonna go Southern Okanagan with this. I think 2017 makes some sense for me, and I would pay certainly $35 for this kind of quality. It's really polished, really, really well-made wine.
Yeah, it is.
There we go.
Thank you, John. Excellent. Next to Sarah.
Yeah, so when I said grapes, I am thinking of this blend, this Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, although it feels like there is some Syrah here because of that meaty component, but Grenache can also give that meaty component as it ages. And there is that botanical component that reminds me of Garrigue from the south of France. So, you know, I'm thinking of actually a cooler part of the south of France. So there are some regions either within the Languedoc or the Rhône or even into Roussillon that would give you those slightly cooler characteristics. I mean, we're talking relatively, this is still a hot climate. Let's say this is going to be, I'm going for it here. Costière de Nîmes. Costière de Nîmes, which is a cooler part. It's actually one of the most southerly parts of the Rhône, Southern Rhône Valley, but it's actually one of the coolest. So I'll say Costière de Nîmes, Southern Rhône, GSM, so Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre. Price on this $30, and the vintage on it 2018.
Good. Thank you, Sarah. Excellent. Okay, Miguel.
Oh boy. I'm in the GSM camp. I can't, that was my initial reaction. I actually, believe it or not, thought about going to the Southern Okanagan with Merlot, that dustiness on its own, but I cannot shake the Syrah and the Grenache, and the firmness of Mourvèdre in here as well. I cannot shake any of that. So I'm going to stay in France, in the Rhône Valley, GSM. I think it's actually Gigondas. That's where I think it's specifically, sense of place. And I'm going to say it's $30. And 2018. 2018.
Okay. Well, thank you. So I told the audience, you know, when you guys were in the lounge that I figured you would all get the grape or grapes, and you have. So I'll give you that little heads up right now. So here we go. You ready?
Yes.
Yep.
This is, I'm just going to, Château d'Anglaise from La Clappe in the Languedoc region of southern France. It's a 2018, and the price is $18.90. And this was on a vintages release February 20th, I believe. And I just love this wine then. And anyway, that's why I chose it. I think I wanted to give you a little, I figured you'd get the grapes, but maybe not the specific area. So let's see how you've done. And let me just tell you a little bit about this property. I mean,
before we get into that, let me bring up the scores really
yes, okay, do the scores.
Let's bring up Scoring Wizard. If you could share your screen with us, please, and let's see how our critics have done from David's very kind round as well. All right, so far we have two winners pulling into the lead so far, which is Michael and Sarah. Congratulations. You've scored 7 points this round. John, you've scored 4 points this round, and you are only a point behind them at 8. And it is David's round, so he is just sitting at 6 points, sitting pretty because of his hosting. All right, we're going to stop our screen share. David, please go right ahead with your
okay. So as I mentioned to the audience, so this is from a little appellation called La Clappe. And the Languedoc is this huge sprawling region with Minervois and Corbière and Fitou. I mean, there's dozens of appellations. La Clappe is a very specific single location right in sight of the Mediterranean. There's a big, not really a mountain, they call it a mountain, but it's a promontory limestone-based cliff, and the vineyards are sort of at the base of it on a slope. And this is the first communal appellation to be granted in this huge Languedoc region that happened in 2015. So communal means a very small area within the Languedoc getting its own appellation or AOP. There's no history here. It's actually only been planted to grapes for 2,000 years. The Romans found it and planted it. Julius Caesar gifted the property to his legionnaires, and they planted grape varieties. So lots of history. And the other thing that I think is really key with this wine, in the early 2000s, it was purchased, obviously lots of history before that, which we won't get into, but it was purchased by the Fabre family. So Eric Fabre was the technical director at Château Lafite Rothschild in Bordeaux for several years. So this is the first grow. It's one of the great wines of the world. And he decided to leave there and scoured sort of the Languedoc for a new property, brought his son in, really worked on the vineyard and the winemaking, and I thought has done just a brilliant job. You know, everyone picked this wine as something way more expensive than it actually is, and that's part of the problem for Languedoc, is that they can't break through that price barrier even when the wine is superb. So I hope you enjoyed it all, and I'm not sure, when I picked this wine, there were about 1,300 bottles available through the LCBO in Ontario, so hope you can find it.
Thank you, David. So critics, I'm going to ask you guys, what did you think of this wine? It sounded like you guys really liked it, but based on the price being $18.95, I don't think that David broke the bank. I don't think that he did. I know, John, you
sorry, David. I
him
didn't
for
actually
that.
think you did. I know you're respectful.
But you also said it could be a really great value wine as well, which I thought was very
Which
perceptive.
it obviously is, apparently, since we all thought it was much more expensive than it is. But yeah, I mean, the Languedoc's been a source of terrific value wines for a long time for reasons that make a lot of sense. It's the Mediterranean. It's pretty easy to grow grapes. They ripen regularly. And it just took, you know, a family like the Fabres coming in and doing a little bit of fine tuning, a little polishing to take what used to be a rustic bulk wine area and make it, you know, a source of extreme value, right? This is terrific stuff.
Absolutely amazing. We have a question also that's come in. What are the stylistic differences between the Languedoc region and the Rhone region? Who would like
Sarah, go. It's in your
Go.
wheelhouse.
Sarah was like, yes, please, I'll take this. Go, girl, go.
Okay, so this is a very good question, because sometimes it can be tricky. The thing is, the Languedoc is actually closer to, most of the parts of the Languedoc are closer to the Mediterranean, which is important. And there are two parts to the Languedoc. There are those that are in higher elevation areas, which are a little bit cooler, and those which are closer to the sea. So there are many different influences here. There are wind tunnels that come up from the north, and then there's the coastal wind. So it's a very complex area, which is why it's being delimited more and more. We're seeing cruise sites within the Languedoc. So the Rhone, however, uses the same grape varieties. Depending on when you are in the Languedoc, it might be a little bit more Syrah, might be a little bit more Grenache, but generally speaking, they use a little bit more Syrah in the Languedoc than they do. It's the most widely planted grape in the Languedoc than they do in the Rhone. So that's something that you can pick out, that spicy, peppery, meaty character. Generally speaking, if you're going to make a big generalization, you could find more ripeness in the Languedoc than you could in the Rhone. And sometimes you can find more intense garrigue, but it can be tricky to tell the difference between some of those, especially because the quality levels in the Languedoc are increasing and increasing. You're getting more boutique producers or more big producers coming in, knowing, you know, how to make some really fantastic wine from that terroir. But can I say that La Clappe, if you're visiting the Languedoc in the southern France, it's one of the most picturesque areas to visit, and it's also not very touristy. So you'll pay a pretty price for these hotels. There are few and far between just in the La Clappe area, but the most breathtaking views of the Mediterranean.
Thank you so much,
Good
Sarah.
answer.
Oh, sorry, David.
That's right. Good.
And we have one final question, which I'm actually going to pose to Michael because you haven't talked in a while. And that is, what would you pair with this wine?
Oh, I don't think that's too difficult. When we're talking about the grape varieties involved, when you've got juicy and grippy and high acid and warmth, you've got all these things all wrapped in. You can actually go pretty complex with your cuisine with wines like this. But I would prefer good piece of salty protein, grilled, good char on it. Actually, even better, do it in a really hot cast iron pan. Throw in a little bit of butter and garlic and rosemary, baste it up, let it rest for 20 minutes, serve it with some good potatoes, serve it with some good greens. So let's not go too complex, but I think that's what this wine cries out for. The tannins and the concentration in it do cry out for a little bit of salty, especially red protein.
David, any last minute thoughts on your wine before we move to our last
Well,
wine?
just pleased that everyone really enjoyed it. We love to bring you great values. I mean, that's really what wine criticism is all about, is finding the good ones that people can afford. And so I'm really pleased with it.
Fantastic. All right, we have our last wine of the night coming up, which is vial number 4. Everyone can pour this into their vials. John, you're staying with me. Everyone else is going to the Critics Lounge. So while we wait for that to happen, I'm also going to pour my little vial here into the glass while we wait for our critics to be sent away into the lounge where they revolted. And now we're doing this. Just kidding. This is actually a very amazing broadcast, and I'm so happy about it. Just going to wait for Michael to leave. There we go. Hello, John.
Hello, Renee. Is this what it's like on the other side? This is my first time. Am I in heaven?
Yeah, this is heaven. This is heaven. You exist at your own house and you talk to me on a computer. So let me start sharing my screen. And I would love if you could just tell the people at home just every point that the critics can get points for, every point that they can score for, and then just a reasoning behind why you picked this wine, just a short one.
Well, yeah, in the spirit of collegiality, wanting to make my colleagues look like heroes, I went to an absolute classic that's a favorite of mine, has been for 25 years. Spent quite a lot of time in the south of Spain and visited Jerez on many occasions. Actually had my wedding in Jerez de la Frontera. So obviously deep connections there, but this is a Palomino-based wine. Palomino Fino is the variety from Spain. The region technically is Andalusia. And the appellation, as you know, obviously is sherry or Jerez. And it's a non-vintage, like the vast majority of sherries. I'll give you a little bit more background on that when we get into the details. And check out that price, $17.95. Stick your nose in that glass and tell me that is not the most complex beverage you can find at sub $20. We forget about these classic fortified wines of the world. This is a dry one, but I would love to see them come back, and they have come back to some degree, even in the mixology world, because if you want to make cocktails with a lot of flavor without necessarily adding a ton of booze, here, at 18, 19% fortified, you can add flavor where and still get balance. So that's more or less the reason why. More to come.
So we have the Lustau here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and what we're going to do is bring our remaining critics back in the room. I have to say, I am a big fan. So remember,
when's the last time you had a glass, Renee? If I could just ask you.
Because they're going to be back in a hot minute. Last week, and that's it. That's what I'm going to say.
Nice.
And they're back. Our critics are back. And a reminder to our audience again: please don't give anything away. We have to make them work as hard as we can. Go, John.
All right, friends, did you have a nice little moment there in the green room, having a little sniff and a taste?
Oh, John.
I was just trying
and critics, just to remember to unmute yourselves as well.
All right, so let's get around the room. Sarah, we are starting with you. Tell us about this, please.
Thank you, John. I'm glad that you did this for us, and I wish I could just burst out with my answer right now on what this is, because I don't think it can be anything else. Well, what I will say is that it's fortified. And what can I say without giving too much of it away? It's from a southerly location. There's a lot of technical side to this wine, and in fact, the winemaking is where this wine gets its flavor. That's what I'll say. Thank you, though.
Cagey answer. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think just enough. Let's move on to Michele. Michele, what are your thoughts on this one?
Allora, so, it could have gone one direction or the other, but the idea here is that it's dry. And so in terms of, whether it's aperitif, digestif, in those areas of our wine consuming world, I think the dryness of it tells us, which one it is as opposed to the other. So I think that's all I have to say.
Share some of the flavors, because not everybody has this in their glass. What are you smelling?
It's briny. It's got nuttiness to it. It's got zestiness to it. So, think about things like toasted nuts, toasted hazelnuts. Think about briny olives. Think about the sea spray. Think about what comes out from the ocean, marine influence, and how it makes this wine kind of kelp-like. It's got really, it's not so much idiosyncratic characters, but it's got very specific characters to where it's from, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Nice. Kelpie.
Kelpie.
Love it.
Kelpie.
The crowd loves it as well.
Sea otters. Anyway.
All right, David, what are your thoughts?
Okay, well, I'm going to go into a little bit more description of the aromatics. It is fortified, obviously, and it's an aged fortified wine. And I love the aromas of this style of wine. They get quite specific for me. I got dried apricot as a fruit, lots of nuttiness, and quite strong, almost walnut, quite a strong nutty aroma. There's a touch of burlap, and that to me is a little signals a little bit of oxidation. So burlap. So how do you know the smell of burlap? So for all you young whippersnappers out there, you don't buy potatoes in burlap sacks anymore. But way back in the day, I would, we'd buy potatoes in burlap, and there's that smell of the potato peel and the burlap. So slightly earthy. I actually quite like it, although it is an oxidative thing. And then how about corn syrup? Here's another commodity way out of the past. So there's a lot going on here. It's obviously very smooth. It's dry, as Michael said. I really love the wine, and we'll go from there.
Brilliant, lovely description. And some hipster coffee places are now selling coffee beans in burlap sacks again, because they're great to wrap your plants in the wintertime if you live in a cold region, and they're fully recyclable. Just as an aside, I haven't seen potatoes in burlap in a while, but coffee beans you might be able to find. All right, now it's the money round. No further ado, Sarah, lay it on the line here. There's only a couple of directions, but you still have to make a choice.
Yeah, so I think this is sherry, and it's Amontillado. So from the Palomino grape, there's no vintage because it's made in Solera, and Jerez, Spain. Am I missing anything? I don't think
Just
so.
a price, please.
Oh, the
Price
price.
and
Okay, so undervalued for sure. So I'll say $20.
And vintage?
Oh,
You
none.
said non-vintage. Blend of vintages, many vintages. Okay. All right. Amontillado sherry, $20. Michele?
Okay. Yes. Spain. It's definitely from Spain. It's a Fino sherry. I would say it's Manzanilla. That would be my my go on that. Specifically, in Andalusia, Sanlúcar de Barrameda. I think it's actually a fabulous deal. I'm going to say $18, made from Palomino. I didn't mention that, and non-vintage.
And I think we've checked all the boxes there. Excellent. Well done. David?
Not much change in my assessment here. So Palomino grape, Spain, the country, Jerez is the region. I believe this is an Amontillado style, just given the color and it's a bit more wood aged to it. It is non-vintage, and these wines, as Sarah said, are terribly undervalued. I think for the complexity, power, depth of this wine, it's an absolute steal once you get used to the style. So if you've never tried one of these, you got to go out and buy it and try it. And I'll even give you the producer if you want. But the price, again, $19.
Excellent. All right. Can we do the big reveal now, Renee?
Yeah, go
I can
for
see
it.
why
I
you
wanna
have so
see-
much
I
fun
wanna
every
see if
week. I
David's
mean,
right on his producer. Do it.
this is the best round that I've ever enjoyed in any of these episodes. All right, I tucked it into my nice little cradle here so I could do a big reveal. So, I mean, it could have been, what else could it have been, right? It's a fortified wine. Maybe Madeira. Did Madeira cross your mind?
Cross my mind, but it's too briny and austere and dry to be Madeira as far as I'm concerned.
Marsala, no, same style, similar, but no, I mean, you guys are all in the right region, of course. This is Lustau's Amontillado Los Arcos, 17.95, if I'm not mistaken. Renee, that's the correct price.
17.95 is the correct price, John.
And that's by the way for the 750 ml. Often sherries come in half bottles, 375s, but that's the full bottle price. I mean, that's a whole lot of wine for $18, I have to say. So yeah, so Amontillado.
Let's see how they did, and let's dive into a little bit more about that. Scoring wizard, can you please come up on the screen? All right, John, you've been kind. You've been very kind.
I was out of this one. That's fine.
Yes,
I'm gonna put my wig back on.
But I'm sure you would have hit it on the nose, just as everybody else has done here. Michael, it looks like you lost point for, I don't know what you lost a point for, but you lost
for the manzanilla.
From the manzanilla. There it was. There we go. You lost a point for the manzanilla instead. But so our winner for the evening is Syrah, quickly followed behind by Michael. David, you did score 10 points in this round. You have 16 overall. And John, I'm sure you would have been just as high as everybody else if you were playing this round. So I need to mention that as well. So we're just going to take down that screen. And please, John, go into your description of the region and why you chose this wine. You're very kind.
Well, I think I described why I chose it in the earlier session there in the critics, no, the anti-critics lounge, in the host lounge, because I think, I mean, these are some of the most undervalued wines in the world. Once historically the most significant wines in the international trade of wine, because they stand up to sea voyages so easily, so readily. So you could ship these from Spain over to the New World, over to India. You could ship them back and forth up to England, and they'd arrive in as good condition as when they left, actually even better. So without getting into too many of the technicalities, why Amontillado and not Manzanilla? So Manzanilla and Fino are, I mean, these wines are all made from Palomino Fino, the base variety. And if you've ever, by the way, tried just basic Palomino made as a table wine from sherry, the area there, I can tell you, it's not the most exciting wine. It's a fairly neutral variety, but it's the magic that occurs during the processing of sherry. I consider sherry kind of like champagne. You start with a neutral base product, and then you end up with something completely different, but amazing several years in. So you start out with this simple wine, you stick it into a barrel, and in the case of Manzanilla Fino and Amontillado, you let this veil of yeast form. Doesn't sound appetizing, but just ambient yeast. You don't top the barrels fully, you leave a little headspace, the yeast forms, and that yeast will over years consume elements in the wine and add flavor. And one of the interesting things that this floor does is it consumes the glycerol, so the sweet part of alcohol. So these wines are dry, high alcohol, but also tangy with the little sea breeze that we were talking about, the kelpiness that we were talking about. So where Manzanilla Fino and Amontillado depart is with Amontillado, you let that yeast floor on the surface die at some point. You don't refresh it with new wine because you have to keep feeding it. It's like your kombucha, your mother of vinegar, you know, keep whatever yeast, your bread dough. Everyone's making sourdough breads these days. You got to keep feeding that. In the case of sherry, you feed it with fresh wine. In the case of Amontillado, you stop after a certain period and you let it age oxidatively, enter the burlap sack, the potato sack that David was talking about. So the yeasty almond flavors of Fino and Manzanilla, shifting now into the more oxidative, almost oloroso like style of sherry. So amazingly complex. Lustau is a pretty well respected producer. You'll find it pretty widely. This was a vintage is essential. That's why I selected. Hopefully everyone got a hold of it. And
David, was this the producer that you were guessing? Fantastic.
And I'm actually quite familiar because whenever I teach the level 3 W set, there's a sherry portion. I always use this wine to demonstrate Amontillado. So I've had it many, many times. And it was almost like an instant recognition.
And this is such an interesting one. We had a question come in, was what is a fortified wine? So just quickly, a fortified wine is a wine that's made. It's a wine that's made and then the fermentation is stopped with grape spirit. So that's the process of making a fortified wine. It changes from region to region, from port to sherry to Madeira. So there's a lot of differences in between, but that's like the bare basics of it. I did want to ask everyone, Michael, you had mentioned aperitivo, digestivo. Where would you put the sherry in the meal?
Oh, I would put it right at the beginning, to be honest with you. Aperitivo for me, you know, great bowl of olives and some salty nuts, and even a little jamon, or, you know, just like some good really aged salumi of some kind. That's where I would go with this wine for sure.
Amazing. John, I'm going back over to you and then over to Sarah. But John, how long could you keep this bottle open if they've opened it at home? How long?
Terrific question. And the thing with sherry is the more oxidative it is, the longer it lasts. So your finos, which are the freshest, 3-4 days with the cork in the fridge is fine. Amontillados, you can stretch for a couple of weeks. Olorosos, you could probably stretch for a month, even 2 or even 3 months. So they really are quite stable, quite age-worthy, terrific for restaurants to pour by the glass with the jamon course or the cheese course at the end, or you can get creative in the middle of the meal too with anything savory, mushroom based, you know, lots of possibilities, lots of umami to work with.
Exactly. And I know, John, you asked me on our way back in with the critics joining us, when's the last time I had sherry? And yes, I had it last week, but also previous to that, I had it a couple of weeks ago. I love a sherry flip. It's my favorite cocktail to do with a sherry, especially during the winter. And our last question for this evening is, I'm going to go over to Sarah. And what would you pair with this sherry? I'm using the person who hasn't talked the most in this round gets to answer this question.
Jamon, manchego, olives. Like, this is a great aperitivo one. I mean, you could serve it with food as well too. There's no reason why you couldn't do it with you know, roast pork loin, and you can actually make a great sauce from these wines too. I mean, it's obviously barrel aged, but it's not super intense, so you can use that to make an interesting sauce. I would keep it simple though. I'd keep it with aperitifs, keep it with some nice briny elements, even, you know, maybe some anchovies, some nice, you know, marinated anchovies on toast would be great with this.
Absolutely amazing. That sounds delicious, and I'm hungry already. We have reached the time that we normally get to this evening, and I'm sure all of our critics are hungry to go and eat dinner tonight. But I wanted to thank all of you guys. We had more than 600 people join us. We got John putting his hair back on.
I'm not doing that. No way.
No way.
I was
No
the
way.
loser of the night, so I'm just going to hide behind my
Oh, wow. Who had the best hair of the night, everybody? Who? Just yell it out. Who had the best hair of the night?
Still Sarah.
Amazing. I love this. I love these guys. I really do.
Sarah.
Absolutely amazing. But thank you so much, critics, for joining us. It seems like everyone has really started to love this format, and I'm sure it's something that we'll keep up again. There's so many different versions of Think You Know Wine, so we'll definitely be here, and hopefully next time maybe I'll select a wine. Who knows? Maybe I'll taste. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But you have no idea what's going to happen with us, so keep staying tuned and enjoying your evening. But thank you, critics, and cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Cheers, everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Cheers.